All right, rejoining us is friend of the channel, Sal Mercogliano, the man behind What's Going On with Shipping YouTube channel. Sal, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Ward. I appreciate it.
So last time you were on, we were talking Francis Scott Key Bridge, but the time before that, we were talking about this, which is the Army's effort to build a humanitarian pier complex off the coast of Gaza. And at that time, the flotilla, let's call it, was on its way across the Atlantic Ocean, and your prediction was it would take a couple of months to get in place. So it's been, if memory serves, about 6 or 7 weeks since we had that conversation. So where is the effort now?
So you had the first vessel leave on March 9th, I believe it was, the Besson, one of the Army LSVs. So you've got a couple of components here. Right now, off the coast of Gaza, you have the Military Sealift Command vessel, former Military Sealift Command vessel, now a Ready Reserve Force vessel, the Roy Biendevez. It is off the port right now of Gaza, or off the coast of Gaza. It has discharged its basically floating barges and is creating an offshore pier. So there's actually two piers being built here. One is being built offshore. This is where vessels will come up to offload their material onto this kind of floating pier. And then Army and Navy watercraft will then ferry it ashore to what's called the Trident Pier. This is basically a long pier that's going to be run up on the beach in Gaza. So Benavidez has gotten the floating pier together. They're working on putting together the pier that's going to go ashore. It's off the coast right now with a ship called the USNS First Lieutenant Baldemiro Lopez. That's bringing over the Navy component. And then some of the Army watercraft are also over there. The Besson, which is an LSV, a logistics support vessel, and two of the three LCU 2000s.
For the last 6 months, we've done episodes about the various crises around the Middle East, whether it's the Israeli war with Hamas or the Houthis attacking commercial shipping and the U.S. Navy's responses, or most recently, the series of strikes and retaliatory strikes between Israel and Iran. I'm sure you, like me, are frustrated by how wrong traditional TV and print sources can be at times. So let me recommend something that I use as I work to get it right while creating current events episodes: Ground News. So let's take a look at the latest around the topic of the Gaza Aid Pier, something that my good friend Sal Mercogliano and I are discussing in this episode. Ground News aggregates the articles on the topic. In this case, there are 11 of them. And they give you a breakdown of the political bias. You can see here, leans left, center, center. There's also an infographic that lists all of the bias in a single presentation here on the right side of the page. They also list how factual it is. You can see here mixed factuality, high factuality, mixed, low factuality in terms of this source Zero Hedge. And this is important, who owns the media outlet. You just can't get this kind of detailed breakdown at a glance anywhere else. Go to ground.news/Ward Carroll to stay fully informed. Subscribe through my link and get 40% off unlimited access, which is the Vantage plan that I use, this month only. That's ground.news/Ward Carroll. The link is in the episode description, so check it out.
Now, some of the vessels are not in place. One of the LSVs, the Low, is over in Suda Bay, and we've had some issues with several of the vessels getting to the Eastern Med. One of the LCU 2000s, Wilson Wharf, is laid over in Tenerife, we believe with mechanical problems, although it looked like it may have gotten underway today, or at least for a sea trial today. And then the most severe problem was one on board a ship, the USNS Second Lieutenant John P. Bobo. This is a former maritime prepositioning ship, very much like the Lopez. It had sailed from Jacksonville when one of its two medium-speed diesel engines suffered a crankcase explosion. The crew on board performed absolutely as you expected. They went down there, they put the fire out using fire hoses and extinguishers. They were able to bring the ship back in on its one remaining engine. And right now they're swapping out the watercraft and personnel from that ship over to another maritime prepositioning ship. This is the Gunnery Sergeant Stockham. And we expect that ship to sail very soon for the Mediterranean.
So you mentioned the Benavidez. This image shows it about 10 kilometers off the beach. That jutting out there about halfway up the image is the pier complex. So this is quite an evolution. Is it immediately adjacent to Benavides where they're assembling this and then they float that into shore, or how does that go?
They've got the floating pier out there, and they actually have, looks like from the satellite images, I saw a clearer image, a little more of a zoom in earlier, and it looks like Benavides has its stern ramp down on that facility. And so that'll be the intermediary position. They're going to bring vessels from Cyprus over there, loaded with gear. There's actually a ship that Military Sealift Command has chartered for that, so it is loading up with relief equipment right now. It'll come there and offload, and then they'll run what you saw there was the Trident Pier. They're going to run that ashore, hook into the jetty that's being established ashore there. And what that'll do is allow them literally to drive trucks onto the pier, be able to offload from the vessels there. Again, you got a very narrow gradient or shallow gradient coming off the beach there in Gaza. So you can't bring deep draft vessels in. So this is going to be a long, I think they talked about it maybe being about 1,800 feet in total length, the jetty pier facility. And then you'll have the Army and Navy watercraft acting as shuttles between those two facilities, the floating offshore pier and then the pier that's ashore. I did find out that the DoD is contracted with an outfit called Maritime, which is out of San Diego. They do a lot of Department of Defense contracts. They're going to be providing the kind of the ground support on there, at least for the pier side. Now, there's a lot of debate about who's going to be delivering food aid off the pier. Will it be the British? Will it be the Israelis? Will it be Palestinians? We don't know all the details quite yet.
To that point, AP reports on the complexities of once the aid gets to the beach. So this is quoting an article that was published today. It says a UN official said the port will likely have 3 zones. One controlled by the Israelis, where aid from the pier is dropped off, another where the aid will be transferred, and a third where Palestinian drivers contracted by the UN will wait to pick up the aid before bringing it to distribution points. The other tricky part here is there are threats from Hamas, who said they'll reject the presence of any non-Palestinians in Gaza, and they're quoted as saying they will regard any forces from other countries that are stationed by the pier as, quote, occupying forces of aggression, and they would resist it. And to that point, last Wednesday, the IDF reported that their forces were mortared while they were trying to construct the pier. You know, in the wake of that World Central Kitchen disaster of the IDF's making a few weeks ago, obviously these NGOs are a little bit concerned about being in the area here with this noble mission of getting food to the refugees. So this is complicated. DoD has said they believe that their part of it will be up and running in early May.
Yeah, and I think that window is definitely doable. I mean, with the equipment they have on hand, they'll be able to get the offshore pier and the shoreside pier together. Now, they're short some watercraft because, again, they're missing one of the 2 vessels bringing the Navy watercraft over, and they're missing some of the Army watercraft that's a little late getting there. So that will slow down the shuttle from the offshore facility to the landside facility. But again, it goes back to the big issue we talked about last time, of course, is security. What is the security being provided for the vessels? We believe the IDF has moved some vessels, some warships in and around the area. We know the Eisenhower has moved out of the Red Sea into the Eastern Mediterranean.
What are we seeing in terms of the weather for the next few weeks?
The spring and the summer is usually pretty good in the Eastern Mediterranean, but this is a system that is really at the weather's mercy. You can't really get over. It's designed to operate up to a sea state 3, which is a pretty good sea state. But again, you have to be able to move cargo off vessels out at that outer facility and then shuttle them in. And what happens is as weather comes in, you actually slow down the throughput. And that's the big issue. You can move cargo in pretty good weather here, but the problem is going to be is it slows down quite a bit. And so this is going to be an entirely weather dependent. This is one of the problems with this operation. It's not like going into Ashdod or into one of the Egyptian ports like Al Sharia, where you have a nice enclosed anchorage with a breakwater around it. This is going to be completely open roadstead, meaning that if a weather pattern does develop over the weeks ahead, that this will close down operations until the weather clears. And there's really no place for a lot of these vessels to go shelter into either. So you would have to hoist back up watercraft back onto the maritime prepositioning ships, and the barge and the offshore pier facilities would be susceptible to it, and you could get damage for that. All you got to do is think back to D-Day and what happened when storms rolled through the English Channel for the ports off the coast of Normandy at the time. Now, this is a much smaller operation, obviously, but also a much more exposed operation.
So as you mentioned, Eisenhower has gone north through the Suez and is now in the Sixth Fleet area of responsibility in the East Med. Another ship in the Ike Strike Group went with them, the Gravely, one of the Arleigh Burke class destroyers we've talked about, that's been involved in this exchange of missiles with the Houthis over the last 5 or 6 months. So the Carrier Strike Group commander, Rear Admiral Mark Miguez, said, re-entry into the U.S. Sixth Fleet is only a small gesture of our ability to project combat superiority to any part of the globe, end quote. So that's sort of a vanilla statement, not speaking specifically to what was the driver. So I don't know if this is Ike going there to protect the flotilla construction, but in the meantime, in their absence from the Red Sea, the Houthis have made some moves. So what's happened lately with the Houthis?
You had Operation Prosperity Guardian going on, and the Eisenhower, Philippine Sea, it's an attached cruiser, and then destroyers were really key there for providing. What we've seen happen in Operation Prosperity Guardian is the U.S., along with the British, had set up their warships, their destroyers, kind of like gatekeepers. They put them between the main shipping lane and Yemen. But now with the detachment of the Eisenhower and the Gravely and potentially the Philippine Sea, I'm kind of hard to imagine that the cruiser did not go with the carrier. But that means there's very few escorts remaining down in and around the Red Sea. The European Union has Operation Aspides up and running, but it also has very few assets. As a matter of fact, what we've seen is a change in operation for U.S. vessels. There was an attack on the 9th and again later on the following week on the ship called the motor vessel Maersk Yorktown. This vessel was sailing into the port of Djibouti through the Gulf of Aden. It's making runs from Oman to Djibouti when it came under attack. What made that attack different, both attacks on it, was in the first case, it was being directly escorted by U.S. destroyers. This is a change in operation that we've seen. U.S. destroyers had not been providing close escort in the past. And then the most recent attack, it was actually depicted in a photograph released by the Ministry of Defense from HMS Diamond, and you saw the Maersk Yorktown in the background. So Diamond was providing close escort for the vessels. This means that I think the level of protection being afforded under Prosperity Guardian has decreased, which makes sense because when you look at the traffic going through this region right now, it's about half to what it normally was. A lot of the vessels going through here now are ships with Russian oil, with Mideast cargo. The vast majority of high-value cargo that's going between Europe and Asia is diverting. It's heading around the Cape of Good Hope. It raised a question of a video I did not too long ago where I asked a question, have we lost the Red Sea? And I'm not talking about has the United States lost the Red Sea, but has the world shipping lost the Red Sea? Because now what we're seeing is 50% of the cargo is taking this diversion around. And I want to emphasize that this is not a mission lost by the Navy by any means or the military. I think it's political. It's like we really need to be thinking politically of how do we achieve success in this region. The Navy has been doing a fantastic job in downing Houthi missiles and drones. The problem is that doesn't bring the vessels back, because the vessels are looking for a low-risk environment, low, war risk insurance. And what needs to be done here is political. The problem is the Navy is not going to be able to force the Iranians to back off their support without changing tactics. So I think we really need to take a step back and really look at what's our overall goal here in Operation Prosperity Guardian right now.
Well, our goal, as we've discussed in previous episodes, was to ensure there was no impact on shipping through the region. That's the goal. And that there has been significant impact. I don't think there's any way to color it except for that's at some level mission failure. As you rightly say, that's not just at the feet of the U.S. Navy, but that's why we had the Eisenhower Strike Group there, and that's why we built Prosperity Guardian with our partners, UK, France, India. And as you said, there's another effort that's been going on in parallel. What's that one called?
Aspidas.
The Speedas. The other thing that happened is they attacked CMA CGM Manta Ray, as I think it was pulling out of Djibouti. So we have mitigated certainly their offensive capability with the strikes that we've done into Yemen. And there was a pause in any attacks from April 16th to the 24th. And I think at that point, everybody was kind of declaring victory in terms of, oh, okay, I guess we've mitigated their ability to the point where maybe we're done here. And I don't know if that caused Fifth Fleet and Sixth Fleet to say, okay, give us Ike for a while during this time of potential chaos with building the pier or what. But now it seems like the Houthis are back. And in fact, they have, taken to Telegram, and basically they're taunting the U.S. And the quote here from the translation of a Telegram post of a Houthi leader said, quote, "The American naval presence has shrunk and many of its warships have disappeared and have spread to the outskirts of the Red Sea." In terms of what I can tell, Sal, in terms of did Philippine Sea go with Ike, I think the answer is no. The only ship that did go with Ike is Gravely. The other ships with locations at least unknown, as reported by USNI News, and my assumption is that means they're still in the Red Sea, is Mason, another Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, and Philippine Sea. The war's not over here, and we've had a lot of conversations about our ability to sustain presence. That's the trick. The other thing, because I've seen some chatter on social media by navalists and other experts about Truman relieving Eisenhower. That is probably true, but that is not imminent. And as regular viewers know, I was just on Truman with Hoser. The air wing still has to go to Fallon. That's a month-long evolution. And then they have to do one or two lengthy at sea periods to get their blue water certification before they're blessed to deploy. And then it's 6 to 10 days to get into the Med and then to the Eastern Med. So relief is not imminent for Ike. And I'm sure Ike is already postured to be on cruise another 2 or so months. No problem. But we'll have to see what these competing hotspots, which one demands the presence of the carrier proper in the weeks to come.
Just quick throw in there too, and let's not forget that we have Iran just seized a vessel, the MSC Ares, that was coming out of the Persian Gulf. They're holding that ship. They've announced they're releasing the crew, but that brings a total of 4 vessels that they have seized or captured and are holding, and throws another wrench into this whole equation with Iranian actions at this time. Now, they're arguing that this had to do with a variety of different diplomatic and economic reasons that they're doing it. But, what we've seen is a lot of issues from the Iranians, and let's not forget, too, the Somalis and the piracy operations that are in full force right now that are happening in and around the Indian Ocean at this time. So, I mean, the amount of hotspots just in and around the Middle East, right, is really difficult. And it's a lot for the Eisenhower and the attached units to cover, especially missing a big deck amphib right now with Boxer, with rudder problems back in San Diego.
Its maintenance is problematic. As they've taken a look at it, they're not sure how they're going to fix it and what time frame that's going to be. Remember, Bataan took Ford's place in the Eastern Med, so we were able to take an amphibious ready group and replace a carrier strike group. But now, as you point out, we don't even have that option in our bag of tricks. The other carrier that's forward deployed is Theodore Roosevelt, currently in port at Pattaya Beach, Thailand. As we've beat this drum in recent episodes, we need more carriers if we're going to cover all of these hotspots. Because in essence, we have 2 forward deployed, and we can't ignore China, and that's why TR is in that AOR. And we certainly cannot ignore what's happening in and around the Arabian Peninsula, particularly with the exchange of missiles and drones with Iran and Israel in recent weeks. Salute to the Eisenhower carrier strike group for the work they're doing. I heard some firsthand stories on Truman about what is it that the Air Wing is doing and what is it that the small boys are doing. And it is amazing work. So let's give those guys props. They are getting the job done, but that's only one aircraft carrier, and they can't get the job done both in the 6th Fleet AOR and the 5th Fleet AOR. So that's just the facts. Currently, the tally for the number of attacks that the Houthis have done on commercial shipping is more than 50. They've seized one vessel and they sunk another. The other thing, remember, we've pointed out, Sal, that their supply chain is a just-in-time supply chain. So yes, we do strikes, we take out storage areas, we take out other parts of their ability to do offensive strikes of ballistic missiles, surface-to-surface missiles, and drones. However, their ability to reconstitute is a function of their supply chain from primarily Iran, which is just in time. So we can't imagine that what we've done so far is at all the end of it, and we're seeing that evidence now. So we will keep our eyes on this in the weeks and months to come. As always, Sal, thank you for coming aboard here and giving us the benefit of your expertise. And as I always recommend to viewers, check out Sal's channel, What's Going On with Shipping. Let me just thank you, Sal, for your coverage of what happened in and around and what you continue to cover about what's going on with the town of Baltimore and the Francis Scott Key Bridge. You have kept the public informed in a way that no other source has been able to do it with the accuracy and the timeliness of you. So thanks for that.
What we say on my channel, Ward, is there's a lot of ship going on. And so we try to cover as much of it as we can. And some days it seems like there's more of it than we can handle. But I appreciate always coming on with you and your audience. They're great. I have a whole batch of them over on my channel now. So I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, we look forward to talking to you again very soon, Sal.
Thanks, Ward.
All right. That'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything going forward. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.